The night was colder than most winters that town had seen in years. Snowflakes drifted softly down from a heavy grey sky, coating the quiet streets in a thick blanket of white. Every sound was muffled, the world seeming to hold its breath under the snow's weight. The dim street lamps cast pale halos on the icy sidewalks, and the few late-night travelers moved cautiously, eager to get home. On the outskirts of the small town, tucked away in a modest house near the edge of a dense forest, lived a woman named Amina. She was known in the neighborhood as a simple, quiet woman. Amina's life was routine, working at the local library during the day, tending to her small garden in the evenings, and spending nights reading old books by the fire. She was not someone who sought attention or caused trouble. She was content with the simplicity of her world. But on this snowy night, that calm world was about to be shattered. At exactly 11:30 p.m., as Amina was preparing to turn in for the night, a sudden noise broke through the silence. It was faint at first, a soft scraping sound near the back door. Her heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the neighborhood was usually safe. Still, she moved carefully to the window, peering out through the frost-covered glass. A shadow flickered across the yard. Before she could react, the back door swung open, and two masked figures stormed inside. They moved quickly, speaking in hushed, urgent whispers. Amina's first instinct was to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. Panic surged through her veins, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had no idea why these strangers had come for her, but she knew fear wouldn't help. "Don't make a sound," one of the men hissed as they grabbed her arms. Their grip was firm but not cruel. Amina's mind raced. Was this a robbery? A kidnapping? She didn't know. She had never imagined herself in a situation like this. Despite the chaos, Amina's face remained composed. Her eyes were steady, scanning every detail of the intruders, their clothing, their voices, their mannerisms. She knew that if she was going to survive this night, she would need to be sharp, to read every signal, to stay a step ahead. The men forced her into a car parked just outside. The engine growled to life, and they sped off into the snowy darkness. Inside the car, the men remained silent, their faces hidden behind masks. Amina sat still, her breathing controlled. She tried to listen for clues, where they might be taking her, what their plan was. The silence was unnerving, but she refused to show any sign of fear. Hours passed, the landscape outside a blur of white and shadows. At some point the car slowed and came to a stop. Amina was pulled out into the freezing air and led inside a large, dimly lit building. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. The kidnappers were cautious, but not cruel. They spoke occasionally in low voices, discussing plans that Amina could only partially understand. It became clear that this was no random act. She was being held for a reason. But what, as the night deepened, Amina began to piece together bits of information. The men seemed nervous, almost desperate. They mentioned names she had never heard, places she had never been. But one thing was clear. They underestimated her calm. Instead of panicking, Amina used her time to observe. She noted the patterns of their movements, the layout of the building, the times when the guards were less attentive. Her mind worked like a puzzle, fitting pieces together to form a map in her head. When one of the kidnappers left the room for a moment, she quietly searched for any objects that might help her escape. Her hands trembled slightly, but her resolve was stronger than ever. She knew that her survival depended on her ability to stay composed, to think clearly under pressure. Kidnappers returned, frustrated that their captive was not breaking down. They tried to intimidate her with harsh words, but Amina remained unmoved. Her calm was a shock to them, a mystery they couldn't unravel. By dawn, the snow had stopped falling. Outside, the first light of morning cast a pale glow over the landscape. Inside, Amina's mind was already planning her next move. She wasn't a heroine from the stories she loved to read, but tonight she was determined to write her own story, one of courage, intelligence, and survival. Her calm in the face of danger was not weakness, it was her greatest strength, and it was about to change everything. The first light of dawn crept through the narrow windows of the building where Amina was held captive. The soft glow illuminated the cold, barren room, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside her mind. Though the kidnappers believed her calm was a sign of weakness or submission, it was anything but. It was a shield forged from necessity and quiet strength. Amina sat on the hard floor, her back pressed against the wall. The events of the night swirled through her thoughts, but she refused to be consumed by fear. Instead, she focused on what she could control, her mind and her will. The kidnappers had underestimated her, and that mistake would become their downfall. The men who had taken her were rough but careful. They treated her with a cold practicality, never crossing the line into outright cruelty. Yet their presence was oppressive, a constant reminder that her freedom was stolen. She listened intently as voices echoed down the hallway, piecing together snatches of conversation that might reveal their motives. "They want a ransom," one said. "The family will pay, they always do." Amina frowned. She had no family with deep pockets. No one would come searching for her with a fortune in hand. This wasn't just a straightforward kidnapping. There was something more complex lurking beneath. Days passed in a blur of monotony and tension. Her captors allowed her little movement, and her meals were sparse and unvaried. Yet each day she found moments to observe, to learn, the patterns of the guards' shifts, the sounds of footsteps, the faint murmur of radios. Her mind was a constant whirlpool of plans and possibilities. One afternoon, during a brief lapse in attention, Amina managed to get a better look at the room. It was a small, windowless cell with a thin mattress and a locked door. But behind, a loose panel near the floor, she noticed a faint draft, a potential escape route. Her heart quickened. Careful not to alert her captors, she tested the panel over the following days. It was loose enough to be removed with enough effort. She knew she had to build her strength and wait for the perfect moment. Her calm demeanor began to unsettle the kidnappers. They whispered among themselves, growing increasingly frustrated. One of the men, the youngest and most volatile, tried to intimidate her with loud threats, but Amina held her ground. Her voice was steady when she finally spoke. "You don't want to do this. It will only get worse for you." His eyes flashed with anger, but he didn't hit her. Instead, he stormed out, leaving the room heavy with silence. Amina realized that the kidnappers' confidence was cracking. They were not as sure of their plan as they pretended to be. This was her chance. At night, when the building was quiet, she practiced removing the panel, her fingers fumbling but determined. The cold air from the draft reminded her that freedom was close, so close she could almost feel it. One evening, a guard brought her a note instead of food. It was folded neatly and slipped under the door. Amina unfolded it cautiously, her eyes scanning the hurried handwriting. "Tell no one. Stay quiet. Help is coming." Her heart raced. Who had sent the note? Was it a trap? She didn't know, but it was the first sign of hope she had seen in days. That night, she whispered the message over and over, committing it to memory. She had to stay strong, stay calm, and wait. Meanwhile, outside the building, the world was awakening to the news of the kidnapping. The town was buzzing with rumors and fear. Amina's neighbors, shocked by the sudden disappearance, had started searching, alerting the police and posting flyers. Yet no one had any leads. At the police station, Detective Kamal was assigned. The case: he was a seasoned investigator, known for his sharp instincts and relentless pursuit of truth. As he reviewed the initial reports and interview statements, something about the calmness of the victim struck him as unusual. Most victims panic, scream, or plead, he muttered to himself. This one, she stayed calm. That tells me she's stronger than we think. Detective Kamal reached out to Amina's closest friends and co-workers, trying to piece together a profile. He learned about her quiet life, her kindness, and her resilience. He felt a growing determination to find her and bring her home safely. Back in captivity, Amina's resolve was tested every day. She learned to control her fear, channeling it into strength. She found small ways to resist, not through violence, but through willpower. One afternoon, a new figure appeared among her captors, a man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor. He spoke softly, asking questions that seemed almost kind. Yet Amina remained guarded. She didn't trust any of them. "You're stronger than they thought," he said. "I can help you." His words were both a promise and a threat. Amina had no choice but to listen carefully, weighing every word. As the days went by, the tension in the building thickened. The kidnappers grew anxious, their plans faltering under the weight of unexpected obstacles. Amina's calm was a puzzle they couldn't solve. One cold night, with the moon hidden behind thick clouds, Amina made her move. Using the loose panel, she slipped into a narrow crawl space, heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Every second counted. She navigated the dark passages, guided by the faint light filtering through cracks in the walls. The sound of voices grew distant, replaced by the echo of her own breathing. At last, she found a small door leading outside. The cold air hit her face like a shock, but she pushed forward. The snow crunched beneath her feet as she ran, not daring to look back. Freedom was close. Rescue was near, but the night was far from over. The night swallowed Amina as she fled from the building, where she had been held captive for what felt like an eternity. The biting cold of the snowy landscape was a sharp contrast to the stale, suffocating air of the kidnapper's lair. Each breath she took crystallized into mist, disappearing quickly into the dark sky. Her heart pounded fiercely, fueled by a mixture of fear, adrenaline, and an unyielding will to survive. Every step was cautious, yet urgent. The snow underfoot was uneven, and the landscape was unfamiliar, but Amina trusted her instincts and the vague directions she had memorized from overheard conversations. She knew that her escape was only the beginning. The kidnappers would be searching for her, and the forest around her was vast and unforgiving. Alone in the darkness, with nothing but the moonlight and her own resolve, she pushed forward. Hours passed as she navigated the wilderness, moving silently through dense trees and over frozen streams. Her clothes, thin and ill-suited for such harsh conditions, offered little protection from the cold. Her fingers and toes grew numb, but she refused to stop. Survival demanded endurance. As dawn approached, Amina stumbled upon a narrow dirt road, barely visible beneath the snow. Relief flooded her senses. This road might lead her back to civilization, to safety, but danger was never far behind. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes sent her heart into overdrive. She froze, barely daring to breathe. Out of the shadows emerged a figure, a man wearing a heavy coat and carrying a rifle slung over his shoulder. Amina's instincts told her to run, but exhaustion kept her rooted. The man raised his hands slowly, a look of surprise flickering across his face. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice calm but wary. "I'm lost," Amina replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please, help me." The man nodded, lowering his rifle. "You're lucky I found you. It's dangerous out here." He introduced himself as Samir, a local hunter familiar with the forests. Without hesitation, he offered to guide her back to town and promised to keep her safe. As they made their way along the road, Amina told Samir as much as she could about her kidnapping, careful to omit details that might put her rescuer in danger. Samir listened intently, occasionally glancing around as if expecting trouble. Despite the circumstances, a fragile trust began to form between them. Samir's calm presence was a balm to Amina's shaken spirit. By midday, the outline of the town appeared through the trees. Amina's relief was overwhelming, yet she knew that the ordeal was far from over. She had escaped physical captivity, but the emotional scars ran deep. Upon reaching the town, Samir helped Amina get to the police station, where Detective Kamal had been tirelessly coordinating the search. The reunion was a mixture of shock, relief, and tears. Detective Kamal immediately took Amina's statement, noting the incredible composure she maintained despite everything she had endured. Her calmness was a testament to her resilience, a strength that had kept her alive. The investigation intensified as they pursued leads to capture the kidnappers. Meanwhile, Amina faced a different kind of battle, reclaiming her sense of safety and normalcy. Days turned into weeks as she attended therapy sessions and slowly reconnected with her community. Her story inspired many, becoming a symbol of courage and hope, but the mystery lingered. Why had she been taken? What had her captors really wanted? The answers came unexpectedly. Evidence uncovered during the police investigation revealed a web of crime far more complex than a simple ransom scheme. The kidnappers were involved in illegal activities, and Amina's abduction was a case of mistaken identity. A grim reminder of how innocent lives can become entangled in dangerous affairs. As justice moved forward, Amina's life gradually began to rebuild. She found strength in sharing her experience, helping others who had faced trauma. Her calm in the face of terror had not only saved her life, but had also illuminated a path toward healing and resilience. The weeks following Amina's escape were a whirlwind of emotions and revelations. The town that once seemed so familiar now felt different, scarred by fear, yet slowly healing through hope. Amina had returned physically safe, but the invisible wounds remained. Her calm demeanor, which had baffled her kidnappers and comforted those around her, was now tested in new ways. Detective Kamal and his team worked relentlessly to bring the criminals to justice. The deeper the investigation went, the darker and more tangled the truth became. The kidnappers were part of a larger criminal network involved in smuggling and extortion, and Amina's abduction was not random. She had been taken because of a case of mistaken identity. They believed she was someone else, someone tied to a rival gang or a key witness in a dangerous trial. This revelation sent shockwaves through the community. The innocence of Amina's quiet life was shattered, but her strength shone brighter than ever. As the trial of the kidnappers approached, Amina was called upon to testify. She prepared herself for the emotional challenge, knowing that facing her captors in court was necessary for her healing and for justice to prevail. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was packed. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with anticipation. Amina took the stand, her voice steady as she recounted the harrowing events of that snowy night and the days of captivity that followed. Her testimony was compelling, filled with moments of fear, resilience, and unexpected calm that had kept her alive. The kidnappers listened, their faces revealing a mixture of anger, regret, and disbelief. The trial exposed the criminal network, leading to arrests beyond just the kidnappers. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief as justice took its course. But for Amina, the journey was far from over. The trauma had left scars deeper than physical. Nightmares haunted her sleep, and moments of anxiety threatened to undo her progress, yet she refused to be defined by her suffering. With the support of friends, family, and professionals, Amina embarked on a path of recovery. She began volunteering with organizations that helped victims of crime and trauma, using her experience to guide and inspire others. Her story became a beacon of hope, proof that calm and courage in the face of unimaginable fear could lead to survival and healing. Months later, Amina stood at the edge of the forest where her nightmare had begun. The snow had melted, replaced by the vibrant colors of spring. She took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs. This place, once a symbol of captivity, was now a testament to her strength. She had faced the darkest night and emerged into the light. Her calm had not only saved her life, but had transformed it, showing that even in the coldest, most uncertain times, the human spirit can endure and thrive. The end.